Okay, I'm a firm believer that anyone can wear any color eyeshadow. Any color eyeshadow. Honestly, I believe that anyone can wear any color. What's important is the tone of that shade, all right? It's so ambiguous to be like, I can't wear blue. What do you mean you can't wear blue? There's so many different kinds of blues out there. Today I wanted to talk about gray, all right? I feel like gray is one of those shades that like can feel a little bit overwhelming for people because they think that it can make them look like really dead or just bring out shadows in them. And I want to show you how you can choose the most flattering gray for your skin tone. So the most important way to start is to understand what tones look best on you. So understanding your skin tone is going to be like paramount. So you might not necessarily know if you are cool or neutral or warm, but you probably have a sense of colors that you wear and you feel best in, okay? I want you to focus on those. So if you are someone who's kind of like a classic, if we're taking like my sort of coloring into account here as like a basis, if you're a classic like pale pink white girl with like blonde hair and blue eyes, most likely you look best in cooler toned colors. You probably like fit somewhere in like winter or winter or summer if you follow the color seasons. So cooler toned colors like those royal kind of blues, cool toned blues, you're probably not going to look as good in like a saturated muted green or like a khaki. Like that's probably not going to look very good on you, okay? If you are someone who is more warm toned, then you're probably going to lean more towards like warm browns, autumn type colors, oranges, those sort of like hot fiery reds. Yeah, think like maroon over burgundy, if that makes sense. So things that have a little bit more warmth in them. If you're neutral, you might be a little confused. Neutral tones, I feel like, can be a little bit confusing. Like typically, if you're like a person who's like, I don't know what my skin tone is, I can't tell if I'm warm or cool, you might be neutral. So looking for things that are sort of like exist in that in between. And the thing is, it's a lot easier to choose those, to be able to see those differences when you're comparing them to other things. So that's going to be true when you are looking for clothing. It's also going to be true when you're looking for makeup. One thing to keep in mind is that makeup is not going to be entirely saturated. I mean, it can be, like you can manipulate your eyeshadow depending on the base that you use, whether you use a white base or a black base or a completely different color base underneath it to kind of manipulate the way that it's going to look on your skin. But it is not going to be completely opaque. So that's also something that you want to take into account. Which is why, in my personal opinion, like even if something is like super cool toned, I feel like I can get away with it on my eyes because it's eyeshadow, you know what I mean? Like it's not necessarily like blush or lip color that's going to be like super clashing with my skin. It's like a little bit more fun. It's a little bit more of like an accent. So I am going to mix up a couple of gray colors. I'm going to be using various About Face eye paints to create a cool toned gray versus a warm toned gray. And we're going to apply them side by side so you can see the difference. Okay, first I'm going to apply a cool toned gray to my eyes using the About Face paints that I mixed up. So I started off with just a black and white base and then added a touch of blue to just make it a little bit more cool toned. And I'm just gonna place this all over my lid and then kind of slowly blend it out. So this is almost giving blue, like the back of my, like my backdrop. And I'm just putting this on clean lids. Okay, so there is our cool gray color. And I will put this on a white paper towel so that you can see the difference, not on skin. Because it really takes sometimes it really takes putting something on like a white to be able to see the difference and be able to see that like it's not actually straight up a blue. it is gray. You know, like that is gray. And then on the other side, I'm going to apply a warm gray. Now this is from Hindash Cosmetics. This is brand new color fluid. If you are not familiar with the color fluids, they are absolutely beautiful formulas, like absolutely stunning. And this is much more of a warm, it's more of like a neutral gray, but it's much more warm toned in terms of this. So I'm just gonna use that same brush. I'm just gonna wipe it off. And I'm gonna do the same thing. And you can instantly see how similar it is to my top. Like there is a lot more green in this shade than in that like cool toned blue gray that we have going on the other side. Why did I take these so far into my nose? I'm not entirely sure. Do you see that massive difference in how it looks on my skin? Obviously, I'm sort of like burying the lead here, or not burying the lead. I don't even know what the expression would be with the top that I'm wearing. I'm kind of giving you a little bit of a hint here for like what color would be more flattering on my skin tone, but you can see that this more warm gray with that has more green in it looks so much more natural. I know, obviously I'm wearing gray eyeshadow. It's not like natural, but it looks so much more a part of my skin than this cool toned like blue gray, which is beautiful. Like I love it. And I think that it's really fun. And it definitely like pops in a way, you know, when you are more pale skinned, if you have like a yellow sort of like tone to you, it can be really fun to play around with these more cool toned blue type colors, because you can kind of play with like the primaries, you know, with like, if you think of your skin as like yellow and then you wear like a red lip, or you wear like neutral clothing with like a red bag or something, it can be really, really fun to play with those tones. And it like, I think it's pretty. I do think it's pretty. I don't think it's like hideous, but look at that difference in terms of like how this tone sits on my skin. In fact, it doesn't sit on the skin. It sort of becomes one with the skin, whereas this blue toned gray sits on the skin. So here they are on a white paper towel. You can see, obviously, we are working with grays here, but the Hindash color fluid is definitely going much more so towards a taupe shade, whereas the color that I mixed using the About Face paints is definitely more so like a cool toned blue toned pink. What? It's not pink. Cool toned blue gray. Okay, you can really see that difference. And then I just want to shear out the Hindash paint for you because it got a little dark on that paper towel. And this is where you can kind of like really see that taupe start to come through. So I want to go over some of my favorite palettes that include different tones of gray if you have been looking for gray eyeshadows. But first, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a trick. If you do have a blue, it's not what I meant to say. If you do have a gray that is not specifically made for your skin tone, but you want to wear it, or like this goes for any color that you feel like, oh, maybe this isn't like the most flattering color on my skin tone, you can use this trick to ground that color. And I actually talk about this in this video up here about black eyeshadow that I filmed like forever ago, but it's still a banger. It's really, really good. And then I also have another video where I talk about how to kind of like adjust tones and colors and contrast specifically for your coloring, which I'll put here if you want to check those out. So obviously, like I said, the slightly warmer toned gray is what looks most flattering on my skin. It looks like it's a part of my skin, whereas this blue gray is kind of like sitting on top of my skin. It's just like, it looks like I just like took something and like popped it on top, right? It's not one with my skin. So one thing that you can do is ground that color, whatever it may be. If it's like a bright color and you just want to make it look like more so a part of you. So what you can do is grab your bronzer or your contour shade. If you don't use contour, you could use your bronzer. I'm going to use this palette from Etude because it has a nice combination. This is a slightly more like green toned contour color. And this is a slightly warmer, but like still soft, not orangey bronzer shade, which is really nice. So I'm gonna actually go into the contour. I mean, you know what? I'm gonna mix them. I'm actually gonna just like go back and forth. When I say mix, I'm just gonna go like this, back and forth between the powders. This is my Rephr 14 brush, and I'm going to place this in my crease, just kind of like around that shade, to ground it into my skin. And what I mean by ground is we're creating a slight variation in the tone of that color. So you can see as I go in with these slightly more warm colors or neutral colors that I know work on my skin tone, it starts to just push this area into the skin. And it starts to look a lot closer to this. And you can just build that up as much as you want. And what that does is it just sort of softens that gradient into that color that's sort of jarring on the skin tone, so that you don't have that immediate jump into that color, and it doesn't look like it's just kind of sitting on top of the skin. It looks more intentional. So you see how much softer that looks? And we have this like nice gradient now. You can see that these colors out here, this sort of like gradient that we have going around my crease, looks very similar to the tone of this warmer gray over here, right? So now it looks more so like an intentional eye look, and it's not as jarring. You could do this with any color. Like if you have one color on the lid, whether it's purple, whether it's orange, whether it's pink, whether it's more yellow, and it doesn't have to be vibrant, it can be any one of those colors that's just like slightly adjusted. You can go in with your contour or bronzer color and adjust around it to create a more grounding effect so that it looks like it's a part of your skin, or it's more intentional. Okay, so I finished off my eyes. I obviously went in with the Hindash Concrete Color Fluid, and then like a nice light wash, which obviously just like melts into my skin so beautifully, works beautifully with my top, I think. And then I also went in with a little bit of Boy Tears on top to just give it that like final sort of like ethereal glow. It really just sort of like looks like natural shadow almost on the skin. Like it's just like a really beautiful smoky eye with a little bit of like that nude glow. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm like obsessed with it. So I wanted to share with you some of the palettes, gray palettes that I really love. So the first one that I want to talk about is, this is not strictly a gray palette, but it does have some beautiful grays in it, is the Blend Bunny My Pang. Is it May or My? I thought it was My Pang. I'm not sure. Microsoft? Yeah, my, right? Microsoft on Instagram. And like all social media, she creates the most beautiful artistic looks. I'm obsessed with her. This is her palette with Blend Bunny. This is the Rotten palette, which was inspired by the colors of mold, which is so freaking creative. Obsessed with it. It's obviously some really beautiful shades. Not strictly gray, but it does have this really beautiful gray tone, which is kind of like a neutral gray, which you can actually see is like relatively close to my shirt. I would say that it has like ever so slightly more of a blue tone, like ever so like a dab of blue in there. So it's not quite as green, but that's a really, really beautiful shade. This is a beautiful palette that has a lot of like color nuances in it, and it's just fun to play with. I find myself constantly reaching for it because it kind of just has everything that I want. Like honestly, I feel like I don't ever have to like make a palette because this is the one that I would want. It's so good. Gorge. Love Blend Bunny, by the way. Next is the Charlotte Tilbury Beautifying Eye Trends in Super Neutral. I love the size of these palettes. They're really, really travel friendly. It has some really beautiful like neutral tones in it, obviously. It has sort of like this soft black gray. It's like kind of a charcoal gray that does lean ever so slightly more towards like a cool tone, but I would say that it's like more neutral, and then it has this sort of slightly more neutral gray. So like this is really, really beautiful. It's not too blue toned. So I would say that I gravitate towards obviously grays that are not too blue toned, and I like things that are kind of like in the middle. I would say that this is like close to the middle, as close to the middle as I like to go. So these palettes are going to very much reflect that. The charcoal has maybe like a slightly more of a purpley tone to it, but also quite soft. So it's really, really nice if you don't want to use like a straight up black. And you also don't want things to be too blue toned. So that's really, and obviously it has some really beautiful like browns and taupes in there as well. Hung Vanngo. This is the Composed Cool Toned palette. I have to say, while he refers to this as a cool toned palette, he definitely made it very versatile. So we obviously have this like quite warm toned gray in here, which is like leaning more so towards a taupe, like basically the exact same color as my shirt. And then we have a more charcoal gray, we have a black, and then we have this one that's kind of like in between the two of them. So we sort of have like it, like if this is going more cool toned, this is in between these two. If this is going more warm toned. So we have some really nice variation in this palette, as well as a white, which is really nice to be able to just kind of like mix. You can lighten things. Always keep in mind that you can mix your eyeshadows. I know it feels wrong maybe because it's powder, but you can tap back and forth between them, you know, and to create like a custom color. So this is a really beautiful palette. Again, like slightly more on the cool side, but he really formulated these so that they're going to work for a multitude of skin tones. And I just love that variation. Like you have so much variation in the tones of these grays, which is really beautiful. Look at that. So really keeping skin tones in mind here. Next is the Precious Metals palette from Colourpop. I love this palette. It's one of those like Colourpop had, and another one that I'm going to talk about in a second. This is obviously like, it has a lot of warms, but it has this really beautiful cooler toned gray that has this really pretty kind of pearl in it. So it's more of like a charcoal color, obviously with the black color, and then some like pretty silvers, pearl, silver, like chrome colors, which is really, really beautiful. So again, extremely flattering gray tone. It's definitely deeper, but it's like, it exists sort of like in that neutral stage where it's going to work on a multitude of skin tones. And I just like that they included it in this like relatively more warm toned palette because it gives you a little bit of variation. Stone Cold Fox, also from Colourpop, one of my absolute favorites. Like so gorgeous, lots of taupes, lots of earthy. It's slightly more like on the cool tone side in general, more like muted and less, I would say, traditional kind of like nude tones. Lots of different variations you can see in this. So like this is the bluest toned gray that exists in this palette, which is more blue toned than my shirt. But it's not too cool toned, in my opinion. It's not like too blue, and I like that it is involved with all of these kind of like taupey shades. So again, you can sort of like mix and go back and forth, whereas on this side, we're more of like a taupe shade, which is like a lot closer to my shirt. So we have those nice variations in tone. So this is just like a really nice palette to have. I feel like whenever I don't really know what to use for a neutral palette because it has so many options, I often reach for this one, and you can see which ones are my favorites. And then finally, Hindash. Once again, I instantly fell in love with this gray toned, which is called Real. It's in the Real gradient, which obviously moves from this like more warm tone, like sort of caramely, orangey, almost red brown, to a soft, warm gray. So you can see like instantly, I mean, I hope you can see, it's very close to my shirt color. It is a really beautiful gray tone. This is a stunning palette for olive skin, if I do say so myself. If you have olive skin, this is a beautiful palette for you because the black is quite soft. It gradiates into this beautiful, rich mahogany kind of brown. So all of the tones are geared a little bit more so towards an olive skin, although you do have the inclusion of like a crisp white, which is nice. But even still, I would say that it's like relatively soft. So this palette is so unique. It's one of my favorites. I haven't used it in a second, but like it was like the only thing I used for I feel like for years. So gorgeous. So I'm hoping that, I think it was available on Beautylish and then it was out of stock for a little while. So I hope it's back. But the fact that he came out with a new color fluid, I'm hoping we're going to be seeing more from Hindash because I love every single thing that he drops. So yeah, this is a gorgeous palette and I love the inclusion of that gray. So if you are specifically like more warm toned or like olive toned, you might like this. All right, guys, that was it for this video. I wanted to talk about like how to adjust things for your skin tone and how to determine like what is going to be most flattering on you. Obviously, like understanding your undertone is always important. Like it's so important. If you want to see this video for like each of the colors, like if you want to see me wear a cool toned green versus like a warm toned green, or a cool toned purple versus a warm toned purple, or maybe a muted purple or desaturated purple versus like a saturated purple, let me know. I'd be happy to make this a series. It's actually like something that would be really fun. Yeah, cause like, yeah, I would love to do that. So maybe I'll just do it, but do let me know if you want to see it. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. My battery is literally like blinking, so I gotta go. But I'll see you in the next one. Quickly on the lips, Katie Jane Hughes Etch, and then Katie Jane Hughes Enigma. Okay? Give it up for the lip. You kidding me? Stop.